All right, so real quick, I don't think we need our full time for this, but I just had two things I wanted to bring because both of these are kind of dumpster fiery.
Okay.
I don't know that we need a theme song for it this week, but they're interesting enough and people continuing to misstep with AI. So the first one I want to bring up is an article from 404. Authors are accidentally leaving AI prompts in their novels.
Oh, no.
That's not good.
Yeah, that's not good. You don't want that.
Yeah, no. So what we'll see is even, the 404 article starts off with this little excerpt right at the front where the prompt is coming in and says, I've rewritten this passage to align more with the author's style in the middle of a tense scene with a scaled dragon prince. So, and what you can see here is fans reading through the romance novel Dark Hollow Academy Year 2 got a nasty surprise last week in Chapter 3. In the middle of a steamy scene between the book's heroine and the dragon prince, Ash, there's this, I've rewritten the passage to that excerpt that I read. It appears as if the author, Lynn McDonald, had used AI to help write the book and asked it to imitate the style of another author and left behind evidence that they had done so in the final book. As of this writing, Dark Hollow Academy Year 2 is hard to find on Amazon. I can imagine so. Searching the site won't show the book, but a Google search will. 404 Media was able to purchase a copy and confirm that the book no longer contains the reference to copying Bree's style, but screenshots of the graph remain in the book's Amazon reviews and on the Goodreads page.
Yeah, so that is interesting. I was not expecting it to be that this author said use this other author's style. I had assumed the author was just like using AI as like a writing partner or something, and when they said do it more in this person's style, they were just using their own name. It's so funny that it was Lena McDonald, the author, asking it to write like Jay Bree. I don't know either of these authors, but that's fine.
Right. Yeah, and then it says that the Lynn McDonald, the person behind Dark Hollow Academy Year 2, doesn't appear to have an online presence. That's why I think it's a pen name. A lot of these romance novels that have been written expressly for like Kindle or the ebook genre, people are writing with pen names, partly because of the genre being steamy and they don't want to have their name like easily findable, their personal details easily findable when they're writing that stuff. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's because they're experimenting. And like, if I were to decide to write in that genre, it would be better for me, like if I wanted to keep an association with my own name, to just go with PD Carpenter or P Carpenter instead of Perry, because people don't want maybe a male name on the author of that. Or Stephen King in his early years would go by pen names. It's because you don't necessarily want your own name associated with that intellectual property in case for some reason your writing isn't to where you feel like your professional standard should eventually grow.
Right. I mean,
or where your personal brand wants to be.
Yeah, there's loads of different reasons to have a pen name, to use a pen name, to choose whether or not to use a pen name. I don't think there's any problem with that inherently.
Right.
I have friends who write actually in the romance genre under pen names. For the reason that like parts of the world and certain employers are still kind of sticklers and conservative about that, and they wouldn't want to hire someone who's writing what they would see as something like explicit or very adult. And so it's not like that's the issue. The issue is like blatantly copying someone else's style. Like, because I personally, for me, my problem with AI in like novel writing would be using wholesale output to claim as your own.
Right.
Using it as like bouncing ideas around, or just like rephrasing some kind of thing, or like summarizing something you wrote to give you notes to work off of. Like all of that's fine. The write this in the style of this other author really stinks. That's stinky.
Yeah. Well, and I think some of that is a product of kind of like the Kindle marketplace mindset.
Oh, wicked.
Because I've gotten involved with some of the writing groups, and people that are doing that are trying to make a living off of writing. It's their dream. But in order to do that with like Kindle subscriptions, you have to get enough pages read, because you get paid by the page, essentially. And you also need to essentially create a whole bunch of content and find incentives for people to be reading it, which is why you have these people that are creating these long anthologies. And they're essentially like writing a book every week or two.
But I mean,
so if you could imagine 40,000 words for a small book every 2 weeks, you're going to want to find ways to create efficiencies.
but at the same time that like makes sense, and I can see how someone gets to that, we are, again, further and further getting divorced from the reasons we do things in the first place. Like if your dream is to be an author and write books, and then you find yourself in this content mill hell of needing to come up with crap to fill space, like, I mean... again, just more than anything, I know I say this all the time, AI really has made me think about why do we do the things we're doing? Like, what do we get out of it? And like, why would you do this except to try and make, I guess, money or make a consistent living?
Yeah. I think feel successful.
Yeah.
By having your name on something associated with you on the cover to be able to see the chart go up.
Yeah. It's very
still
human.
A dopamine rush.
Yeah.
It is. All right, let me go to the next article real quick because this hits on one of the themes for this show, which is the idea of detection, because we've got the Validia interview in just a few. But you know me, I've been a little bit critical of the detection market when it comes to like all the static video and stuff. So not like the live stream stuff like Validia is doing. There's a lot of good work going on there. But when it comes to output, static output, or I guess prepackaged output, like a video clip or an audio clip or an image. There's been a lot of weird stuff that's just not working well with the detection market right now. And we've hit this point where detectors and people are both making mistakes. People are attributing real things as being fake because it's inconvenient or it's blurry or something like that. And then, of course, things that are generated by AI whole cloth are also being attributed to as real by people who find that convenient or by tools that just miss it. And so there's a really good example of this that came out. What is the date of this? May 21st, so very recently. And it says, what AI detection tools got wrong in the case of a photo tweeted by a French politician. And in this, I would encourage folks to go to the link in the show notes because it's got a really great, thorough breakdown. And it just starts off in saying, a number of social media users have falsely accused far-left politician Jean-Luc, and I'm not even going to pronounce the last name, of using Mélenchon. Okay,
I'll take the heat for that. my 4 years of high school French.
They accused him of using AI to add several French flags to a photo of a protest. Oh. Some of them shared screenshots from AI detection tools, which determined that it was likely that the image was AI generated. Turns out, however, that this photo of a protest against Islamophobia on May 11th in Paris was real. So what does this tell us about the reliability of tools meant to detect AI-generated images? Well, so I like this because it goes like straight in and related to like the interview that I did with CNN, which I don't think we've talked about yet, but I'll put a link in the show notes for that as well. It's really good. You'd see Perry Deepfakes, one of CNN's hosts, Isabel Rosales, and she reacted to it. It's a great segment. I love that video. Yeah. It's a fun, short segment. It's like 2.5 minutes. Yeah. Really easy to check the description, show notes. But in this, of course, everybody has their own narrative, right? Because the person that's putting this out is telling a story, but then that story is either convenient or inconvenient for groups of people. And they're either going to want to prove its validity because of its convenience, or they want to invalidate it because it's inconvenient. And so people are immediately going, why are there French flags in that? Is that really real? And then so you'll start to see the conspiracy mill begins. And what people end up saying in this is, accusing it of being AI generated. People on Twitter said the prompt was, quote, add French flags. None of the French flags are real, claimed the author in the social media post that generated more than 700,000 views. I mean, people knowing about the fact that you can easily do something like this is both a blessing and a curse. Yeah, I mean, we all need to be like aware of the capabilities, right? But we also need to not do witch hunting, period, full stop. Right.
And we
then
need
people
to
are sharing these screenshots of tools saying that it's likely generated by AI, and we'll get into that in a second. But finish your thought real quick.
No, that was where my thought was going, and we'll talk about it a little bit right before we tee up the interview that's coming up. But trusting any AI detection tool on its face that like is claiming to have a certain amount of certainty is like a dangerous game to play, because detection is a crapshoot when you're just doing AI versus AI detection, because of the way that works. So we'll get into that later in the episode, so I won't do it all now. But like, it leads people to witch hunting and false assumptions, and it's equally bad for something to be real and be treated as fake as it is for something fake to be treated as real. Those are the same coin, two sides of the same coin.
And so in the article, they mentioned some of the tools. One said that there was a 90% probability that it was generated by AI, and another one said it was a 95% possibility. Wow. So really, contributing to that narrative that this whole thing is fake. And yet there were real French flags. There were other press photographers that were there that took other pictures, and yes, they correlated and they were in the same place when you start to triangulate around it. So that was really interesting, and yet people still push back. And they go, wait, but, and as if you're watching this, some of the things that they talk about is like, it looks like this hand has 6 fingers. And as people start to look at this that actually understand photography and light and shadow, they're like, no, that's a hand gripped around a flagpole. And what you're seeing is the angle of the hand and a shadow from the pinky finger going onto that, like that fatty part of the underside of the hand.
Yeah, it's
and it
palm.
Makes it look like there's another finger.
Yep. But the photo on the screen is just a very blurry, blown up chunk of the JPEG, and it's just a normal picture.
But we want to see, we've kind of trained ourselves to think when you look at these that any like unnatural blurring or unnatural, a thing that might look like an extra appendage means that it's an AI generated image. But in reality, it could just be an artifact of a lens, or the fact that there's compression being used in the image somehow.
And I'm about to out myself as a person who listens to Tool, but if you look at any of the album covers from Tool, like specifically to 10,000 Days, if you posted that on Twitter now, and that album came out in the early 2000s, I think. If you posted that on Twitter now, everyone would say it was AI, and they'd point to like little details in the background that are weird because it's this surrealist imagery. We are really keen to be able to tell things for ourselves and assert that we are arbiters of our own truth and reality. And like at the same time that the fact entering the cultural zeitgeist that you can create anything with AI is useful because people need to be aware of that fact. We just really need to check our own impulses when it comes to anything that might lead to witch hunting.
Yeah, there was a really good post on LinkedIn from one of the founders of the detection company Get Real, which is one of the good ones that are out there because they're all into like the investigation and the nuance. So like the tools tell us one thing, but what do decades of understanding how photography works and how light and shadow works and how maybe on sound, how acoustics work, what does that tell us? And that started to get in those broader discussions that were teased out in the article. The other thing that they brought out really well in their post was that the reason that a lot of the tools got tipped off is because the photographers, whenever they brought that into the digital environment that they were in, used restoration tools in order to sharpen the image. And all the restoration tools right now have some kind of generative structure built into them. And so they're either doing some kind of, understanding of differences between pixels and adding pixels to restore things, or they're pulling things out. But it goes back to the whole point that I've made for a while now, which is the fingerprints of AI are increasingly on everything. And so you can have very, very real things that have then been passed through some kind of restoration process or cleanup process that now have fingerprints of AI all over them. And that just creates confusion because the tools only see the traces of generative touch.
Absolutely. That is absolutely true. And if we're going to try and use any kind of machine assistance or tools or systems to determine the veracity of something, it cannot just be a single check of like an AI-powered search checking for irregularities in the pixels or any single vector. It has to be this multimodal approach. And actually, we get into that with Validia AI in the interview coming up next. So why don't we take a quick break and we'll key up that interview and we'll drop you right into it.
This is the FAIK Files.